Welcome to episode number 56 of Life Without Cravings. A couple of weeks ago, I did an experiment that I want to share with you. I went on a sugar binge for a week to see what would happen to my sugar addiction. And some of you might think that I'm a little bit crazy. I might have thought so myself, but I thought this was going to be quite interesting. If you remember, I was sugar-free for a whole year in 2022, and on New Year's Eve, I had planned on eating some ice cream as an experiment. It was a complete non-event, and my curious mind likes experiments, so I decided to do something that most addicts would think of as unthinkable. I decided to eat something with sugar in every day for 7 days in a row, and then to stop again. I decided to do it without restriction, without any rules. Some of the major reasons for why I chose to do this is that I'm always saying that I'm healed from my addiction. But I also do not have any doubts that my addiction can come back at any time if I'm indulging in old habits. So I wanted to give it a week to see what would happen with my addictive pathways if I just allow myself to kind of go with what my brain wants me to do and listen to that addictive voice rather than listening to my rational mind, which I have been doing for quite a few years now. Another reason I wanted to do this was for my clients, because I teach them how to have exception eats if they want to, and that's easy. That's really, really easy. And I teach some of them how to moderate for a period of time. But I'm not teaching anyone to go off track for the holidays and just like throw in the towel, have a fun week or two, and then get back to normal, because it is really hard to just go on a binge where you choose to go unconscious, if you like. But I think this experience for me is really valuable, and I can use it to show you guys why it's so important that you do the work, even when it feels like I got it. And I am not planning on teaching my clients how to go on a binge and then come back. I don't think that is useful for any of you. I think it's very useful for me as a teacher to do that. And thirdly, I'm just a curious person. Like, I've avoided doing this because I thought that it would be very hard for me to get back on track. And frankly, I don't like doing the work. It's not comfortable. I guess I want to avoid anything that is uncomfortable, and that's why I'm not even entertaining the idea to do it. And a lesson I always teach my clients is that if you're avoiding something because you do not want to go through the uncomfortableness of learning that lesson, that's exactly where you need to go. That's the work that is going to give you the most progress. So I finally did it. I mostly ate things that I had made myself, with 2 exceptions. So I'm going to share with you what I was eating and what was happening throughout the week, because I took notes every day specifically so that I can share it with you, but also for me to not forget about what was happening day by day. So on day 1, I made these oatmeal biscuits. In Swedish, we call them havreflarn. They are really quick and easy to make. That's why I chose to make them. I had a few after dinner and they tasted nice, but they also tasted very, very sweet. Like, they were overly sugary and I didn't feel great eating them. Like, my body didn't feel great. I almost felt a little bit sick. Just for the sake of it, I had a couple of those later as well, but I felt like I just had too much. So I stopped because my head was like, we don't like this. The body doesn't like this. We don't need this. And that's pretty much what I expected would happen, because I don't think I'm a sugar addict anymore. And I have tried this many times with many different foods, not with these particular biscuits, but you always imagine that they're going to taste much nicer than they do. And I've always had enough very, very quickly. So this was kind of what I expected. On day 2, I didn't want to think about those biscuits anymore, and I was like, oh no, I can't eat them again. So I made another Swedish classic. We call them chocolate balls. It's pretty much oats, sugar, butter, cocoa, and vanilla essence, and you just roll them in coconut. And I used to love those, and they tasted okay, but truth to be told, I think it was the oats in there, and I kind of like oats, or I thought I liked oats, but they made it taste a little bit like hay. Not that I have ever eaten hay. So I didn't really enjoy them that much, but what I noticed was because I had a bunch of them in the fridge, I started already on day 2 feel like I wanted to go back to the fridge and get more. Just to see if the next one was going to taste a little bit better. I decided to just go with it because that is what I would have done in the past. I could easily have stopped myself here and said, hey, you didn't like them, but I didn't on purpose. So I snacked on 5 of them throughout the day or the afternoon, even though I wasn't really enjoying them. But there was nothing about them that would warrant me to go and get more and more. So I just reinforced this snacking behavior, and my brain was on board straight away. And this is scary to me, like how quickly my brain wanted to go back what it used to do before. So on day 3, I decided to switch it up a little bit. After dinner, I made pancakes. I thought pancakes have always worked for me. I made pancakes, I ate them with sugar. It's amazing how I could be really full of steak and still be okay with eating a whole stack of pancakes. And I did enjoy the pancakes. They didn't taste like hay, they didn't taste overly sweet because I could put on as much or little sugar as I wanted. I think pancakes, they fulfill all the things that my addiction is looking for. They're a little bit sweet, they're a little bit salty, they're a little bit crispy, and they're all the things that I'm looking for. So I really actually enjoy them. So that is a little bit different. Normally, pancakes would not have been the thing that would trigger my cravings the most. Whatever would have been the sweetest would have triggered my cravings the most. So I think the pancakes just hit another button for me, and that at the moment, because I am not used to eating tons and tons of sugar, they probably hit the sweet spot for me. The perfect combination of fat, salt, and sweetness, and the crispiness. I like texture. So on day 4, this was the day when I had a bag of chocolate chip cookies. We got them delivered around lunchtime, and I dove straight into the bag. I continued to snack on these cookies all day long. I think what I liked about them was the crunch, but the actual taste wasn't very exciting. It was like meh. But I kept eating them, and I noticed my brain was telling me every time I went for a new cookie, it was telling me like, okay, let's see if we can get that taste that we're looking for. It's like the brain is just looking for the extra bit of reward. And I know that it's never going to come because they're not going to taste any different, no matter how many of them that I'm eating. And still, I wanted to have that. And all that happened was that I got really hungry because obviously eating sugar for an extended period of time throughout the day will have my blood sugar probably go all over the place. I didn't measure it, probably should. So I got really hungry, and obviously I wanted to eat more of everything. The cookies, dinner, everything. I just like the appetite is just ramped up, want to eat anything. So this really brought me back to how it was for me many, many years ago. So if I was at home, I would constantly be snacking on something. And I think this completely fucked up my metabolism. So that is not something that I want to do. That is not something I want to go back to. That kind of, I wouldn't say scared me, but it worries me that I can go back to that kind of thinking with just 4 days of this behavior. So on day 5, when I made the chocolate balls the second day, I put half of them in the freezer. So I thought I need to eat these at some point. So I got them out of the freezer and I decided to eat them. And it's almost like the oats were reducing the flavors and preventing me from enjoying them to the max. But I was still in snack mode. I was in full snack mode. I got back to that very, very quickly. And I think one reason for that is that hasn't ever gone. Even now when I'm not eating sugar, I often get urges to go to the kitchen and just have a look. I always catch myself, and I know this is part of my propensity to wanting to procrastinate, but I don't give into it normally. But I haven't got rid of that behavior, so I think that just came back very quickly, and now it's for the sweet stuff specifically. So I just wanted to keep going back and eat them until they were all gone, and that's what I would have done 10 years ago, and that's what I did. I could have stopped myself still. I was still aware. I was still in control, but that would have been cheating. So I just did it just to make things a little bit worse and a little bit more of a challenge. Because if I had taken control at this time and like, no, actually I don't want to do that, then what's the point of doing the experiment? And on day 7, that was my last day, I had the oatmeal biscuits again. I just thought they're easy to make. I made a double batch and I definitely overate biscuits. I kept snacking on them all evening in front of the TV. I did feel quite sick when I was doing it. So what I would do is probably what I've done in the past as well. I would eat until I didn't feel great, then I would take a break. 30 minutes later, try a biscuit again, see how that goes. Maybe I manage to eat 2 before I feel sick again, take another break, wait, continue eating. So I was just continuing doing that, and my brain was 100% looking for something more. Even though I felt sick, my brain told me that I want to continue eating because we're looking for something that we haven't satisfied yet. That is the addictive pathway. And that is what I've been triggering by doing this for 7 days. And it would be so easy for me to just continue doing that. So basically, it took me 3 to 4 days before this old addictive pathway was completely lit up again and just wanting to take over my brain. But there were tendencies on day 2 already. I wouldn't have worried too much about it if it was like a 2-day thing that I was doing, because it would have been easy to take control again. Now, I'm saying this, but that doesn't mean that I'm an addict again. It just means that the addictive pathway has been fired up again and wants to continue going. And if I hadn't continued this way, I could very well have become addicted again. I do not think that that is the case, and I'm going to explain why. I think a week is a long enough experiment, even though I wasn't looking forward to going back to eating almost no carbs again. As a matter of fact, I did think that I could just make it 8 days because it wouldn't make a difference. It's already bad, and you guys wouldn't never know unless I told you. But the thing is that I know. And if I can't live with integrity, that means that I do have a problem. If I listen to that voice, that's a sign of an addiction, where you're trying to hide something, where you're trying to glorify reality to make it look like it isn't as bad as it is. And I am more than capable of taking control of the situation again. So the telltale here is whether I do it or not. But yes, the thought was there. The compulsion to wanting to do it was there. But I want to live with integrity. I want to be the one in control. I don't want to start pushing my boundaries again just to get another dopamine hit. It is not worth it. And I'm going to tell you, I also didn't want to do it because I needed to stop this, or the whole experiment would have been fucked up. I didn't want to do that. Then I've basically been eating for 8 days, or maybe it would have gone on longer, I don't know. For no specific reason. I would have seen how quickly I would deteriorate, but I wouldn't be able to just go back and take control and show you guys that you can do this as well if it happens. At any point during a binge, you can take that control back. So when I went back, the first 2 days are probably, what you would expect them to be, what they usually are after you quit. I just kept wanting to go back and check the fridge, check the cupboards several times per hour. It was like my mind was being hijacked by this old pathway again. It just wanted me to move and go and check things and see, is there anything I can eat? Is there anything that will satisfy me and give me that dopamine hit? Day 3 seems to be magical, both when you start a binge and when you're coming out of it. It wasn't too hard during the day, and I think that is because this isn't usually a problem for me during the day until after lunchtime maybe. But my old need for having something sweet after dinner, that kind of trigger showed up. It felt like my eating wasn't complete unless I had something else. And that's something that has been with me for so many years, and now when it's triggered, I just want to come back. So it was easy for me to just sit with my cravings, but I started wondering if this experiment was really worth it. Because, you know what? It's not comfortable. And when you're on day 3 and you're thinking, hang on, I worked through this before so many times. I worked through it to the point where I don't have to work through it anymore. Now I spent a week doing this and it's all unraveled. The disaster mind is coming up again. I'm going to tell you, day 4 was pretty much the same, but on day 5, I think my brain just took a different tactic. Rather than increasing any cravings or any such thing, what it did was just like, no, we don't have any appetite for meat. I mean, it could have been a normal variation because this does happen sometimes, but it would have been quite a coincidence if it happened on day 5 here. I think my brain was just pulling another trick. It told me like meat of any kind, we don't want it. It's very unpalatable right now. Makes us feel sick to think about it. So I went and I made a huge ham and cheese quiche, and that was really tasty. So that worked, and I just needed it that day. Then I ate quiche for 2 days because I didn't have any appetite for meat the day after either. So I still had some urges. It's not like they were completely gone, but the cravings weren't necessarily for sugar. Now it's more the urge to go and do that behavior and look for something. Pretty much what I had before the experiment, but on steroids. I think that's more to distract myself than to eat anything in particular. And now it's about 10 days later, and I think I'm still the same. I still get these thoughts and the urges to go out into the kitchen. They're not overwhelming. I do get a lot more of them than I usually do. So yes, the addictive pathways were definitely being re-engaged, and I definitely wanted to go back to old behaviors very, very quickly, but not so much in the first couple of days. So 2 to 3 days seemed to be safe, if you want to use that word. During these 7 days, I was never out of control. My brain wanted me to be out of control. I wasn't worried about spiraling out of control and going for a binge for several weeks. I didn't even consider this as something that could happen, because if I would probably never have done this experiment, because that seems a bit stupid. But I still wanted to delay doing the work to get back to normal because it is uncomfortable. However, I didn't let my toddler brain take over. I called it out on the BS, and I just got myself back into the right mindset most of the time. And I put my little scientist hat on and I focused on what's important. And that is to study my thoughts and my behavior and to start eating healthy again. Because frankly, I started to feel quite sluggish and tired. And I had a mild headache from, I don't know, maybe day 4 or so, maybe 4 or 5, that continued for a few days, which I have no doubt was down to the sugar. And I have no doubt that it would have developed into a much worse headache if I had continued. So my conclusion is that it is possible to remain in control, at least for a week, because that's how long I tried it, probably longer, even if you go on track. And I want you to know that if you do the work to teach yourself new pathways that become your new go-to habit, even if you fall off the wagon and you go off track, that pathway is still open and it's still something that your nervous system is okay with, that your nervous system find easy to do, so you just have to steer it back. The thing that is going to trip you up is when you are buying into your own bullshit and tell yourself that you just have to continue or that you're out of control. When you have those beliefs, they are going to be true. Because then you see no solution. There's nothing for you to grasp on. If you don't think that you're in control, how are you going to take control? And you know that shit isn't true. It's just a lazy way of doing it. That's how you try to avoid taking responsibility for what you are doing. And believe me, I wanted to. I really, really wanted to, because I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. But I want to be awesome a lot more than I want to be comfortable in my uncomfortableness. So if you get your mind right, you can probably do whatever you want to do with your diet. It just requires a stronger and more well-trained mind the longer you're doing it. So I wouldn't recommend it because it's completely unnecessary and you don't want to eat that way anyway, most likely. And if you missed it last week, I announced that I have a new free mindset training to help you overcome all the bullshit that your brain is telling yourself. And in that training, I'm teaching you how to let go of that old programming, the thoughts that are going to come back over and over again and want you to go off track, and those addictive pathways that comes with that, and how you can purposefully start shifting your mind to build a bulletproof mind that will just deal with things like this, so that you don't have to worry that you're going to spiral out of control. You're always going to be able to be in control. and you will build a mind which is capable of overcoming addictions or compulsive behaviors that you might have, which is, by the way, a very awesome skill to have. So if you want to build that mind that is completely bulletproof, that can continue to kick ass where most people would just cave in, I do recommend that you sign up for that training. You can find the link in the description and it's free, so you have nothing to lose. And that was all I wanted to share with you today. That was my experience of going on an intentional sugar binge for a week as an experiment to see how quickly I deteriorate, to what degree I deteriorate, and what is actually happening to my mind. And 10 days later, I'm still not quite back to where I was, but I am in control. I haven't gone off track. I know what I'm doing. I'm just a little bit pissed off that I still have to do the work. But that's what I signed up for when I decided to do this experiment. So anything is possible as long as you are willing to feel uncomfortable. I'll see you next week. Bye.